In this video manual, we're going to take a look at PowerKey. You may have seen a brief guide on this program on a previous video manual's volume set. For this version, we'll take a more in-depth look at reviewing some of the popular functions and highlighting some other new ones. PowerKey is essentially a complete package from Macrosystem that is composed of both software and hardware. And when we're talking hardware, we mean the keyboard itself. PowerKey can run off of a standard USB Windows keyboard, but for best compatibility and functionality, we recommend that you use the keyboard sold by Macrosystem, mainly due to the fact that some keys and symbols are specific to that Macrosystem keyboard. Basically, PowerKey is a program that simplifies your work in many of the Casablanca menus. It'll reduce the need for the trackball and give you copy, paste, and repeat commands. It's going to take some getting used to since there are so many functions, and we'll talk about many of these key options here today. With some practice, you'll be able to become more hybrid with the trackball and use your keyboard to speed up your editing time considerably. PowerKey can be run off of Casablanca systems that are running 1.8 version or higher, although it's best to run off the higher Smart Edit versions for more compatibility with the keyboard. Be sure to also set the language choice here to get the proper shift and numbers key combos that correspond with the keyboard. If you use the Macrosystem keyboard, set it on English. Other keyboards may require you to set it to English US. To start out, there are two places to get info about the PowerKey buttons. Number one, you can hold down the F2 key or the F2 button on your keyboard. Or second, you can refer to the table of contents in the back of the written PowerKey manual. You may want to have the table out next to you while you practice. Otherwise, you can always see what keys correspond to the Casablanca menus by holding down F2 in any of the menus that you're in. Through this demo, you're often going to hear me say the word tap for a key command. That means press the key once, don't hold it down. You'll see what I mean when we get into some of these repeat commands. Two important keys on the keyboard to start out with is that you know on your trackball when you left click, that'll do an OK, or a right click will be like a cancel. On the PowerKey keyboard, when you hit the return key or the enter key, that is basically an OK. If you click on the escape key essentially means a right click or cancel. And this will keep true to any menus that do allow you to have the choice of OK or cancel in them. The other two keys that you'll notice on the Macrosystem keyboard is the storyboard key, which looks like this key, and there are two of them on your keyboard, or the navigation key, also known as the Windows key or the menus key, and there's one of them on the Macrosystem keyboard, and it looks like the three boxes stacked on one another, and it's found in the lower right corner of your keyboard. This key of the Windows key or the navigation key, when you hold down this key and you select another letter, that's actually going to take you to a main menu. For instance, I'm going to hold down the F2 key here in this menu, and you'll notice down in the lower right corner, you'll have the navigation key plus H equals the home menu or the main menu. So hold down the Windows key or the navigation key and then tap the letter H. You'll see that takes you back to the main menu. Again, holding down the F2 key, you'll see that every one of the main menus on the Casablanca can be accessed with that key combination. There are several combination keys that can be used on PowerKey that'll give you different menus, functions, and repeat commands. In this case, when we use the navigation key, we're only accessing main menus. So if I want to go into the Edit menu, you'll see that I'm still continuing to hold down the F2 key here, that the Windows or navigation key plus E equals Edit. So I'll hold down the navigation key and tap the letter E. That takes us here into the Edit menu. Here's also a tip for those that are familiar with PowerKey but may not have used this command. If you ever have a deactivated trackball or a trackball is missing for whatever reason, you can still access all these menus via the keyboard. If you hold down the navigation key and you use one of the arrow keys on your keypad, this actually takes control of your trackball. And continuing to hold down the navigation key and then using the left or the right arrow keys is going to let you move your trackball essentially on the screen on this crosshairs of north, south, east, and west. Some more basic keys. We're going to kind of start out with some of the basic key options here that PowerKey offers you. is the ability to select or move through different bins or menus. The arrow keypads are going to actually let you move when you're in the edit menu through your scene bin. Tapping the right or the left arrow keys on the keypad is going to allow you to move forward or backward through your scene bin. If you use the page up, it's going to do little skips as if you're kind of just selecting down the line of the scene bin. I'm doing page down here. Or page up is going to move you left, doing little skips in the scene bin. The home key will actually take you to the very beginning of the scene bin, or clicking on the end key will take you to the very end of your scene bin. Here's where we're going to talk first about your storyboard key. Down below on the keyboard, you're going to find two buttons for the storyboard. It looks like a little square on top of a rectangle. When you're holding down this key, and that's the key thing, is when you hold down this key, this means that whatever you're going to do is going to be done up on the storyboard. So right now, if I hold down the storyboard key, to add a scene to the storyboard, holding down storyboard and then tapping the button insert is actually doing an add. And you can see as I hold down F2, a whole bunch of little buttons are going to appear here, and every key of your menu will have a representation for a power key. And you can see up at the top under Add, with the little parentheses, it shows you the storyboard plus insert allows you to insert a scene onto the storyboard. Now if you want to do anything else up on the storyboard, you would still continue to have to use the storyboard key. Perhaps I want to select a different scene in the scene bin. So I'm going to use my arrow keys to move down here to select a different clip. And again, I'll do storyboard, insert, and up here, if I want to choose behind, again, I can use F2 to let me choose what I want as my option. Just always use the F2 button to hold down and see it. If you don't want to hold down the F2 button, then again refer to your table of contents that you might have laid out next to your keyboard. So I'm going to choose behind. And I'm going to actually do a couple of these, so I'll do storyboard insert and just repeat a few of these shots. So that way you can see when I hold down the storyboard key plus the arrow keys, now I'm moving through the storyboard, left or right across the screen. And the same things will apply. The storyboard plus home take you to the beginning. The storyboard plus end takes you to the very end of the storyboard. Here's one of the situations where I do refer to the word tap. If I hold down the F2 button, you're going to see that storyboard plus delete actually removes the scene from the storyboard, just as if you were using your trackball to remove it. If I hold down the storyboard key and I tap the button delete, that's going to remove one of my scenes. Now if I don't tap it and you accidentally apply pressure to your delete key, holding down the storyboard and pressing down the delete key, watch what happens. It just completely removed my storyboard. Yes, and this, as you know, the remove button on the storyboard, there is not an undo key on the storyboard. So I would have to re-add these scenes in their proper order. So again, remember, when I say the word tap, whenever you're doing a key combination, you're more than likely going to want to just tap that key once to make that command happen. If you want to do something rapidly, then by all means hold down the key combination and hold down the other letter key, and that will repeat the command over and over again until you release that secondary key. But just keep that in mind. And again, I'll try to refer to the word tap when it's best to select that key combination just once. Let's take a look at some more basic keys. I'm going to use the arrow keypad here to go somewhere else into the scene bin. Let's roll down here to some kind of moving shot. We have a shot here that's called pan, which pans across the mountain range. You'll notice that on the keyboard, the F9, F10, F11, and F12 keys have record, stop, play, and pause. So if I do have a scene highlighted in the bin, when I hit play, that's actually going to play my clip for me. If I hit F12, that'll actually do the pause. F10, of course, will do the stop. So you can essentially control your scenes in the scene bin with the play, pause, and stop commands under the F10, 11, and 12 there at any time. Also note that if I insert a scene to the storyboard using my storyboard insert key, if you hold down the storyboard key and you hit play, it's actually going to be playing up on your storyboard for you. So those play controls can also be used in that regard as well. Here's another option we can use. Holding down F2, again you'll notice that any menu key in here can be accessed by a letter key. For instance, down under New, when we click on the New button, you can actually just click on the N key when you're here in the Edit menu, and that will open up the New menu. So I'll click on N to open up New. This opens up a list of your options here in the New menu. If you're ever to use the activation slider, if you click on F2, you'll notice that if you click on the letter L, that's actually going to activate the elevator slider here. One of the great things in the power key is the option to go alphabetically by using a letter key whenever a slider is activated like this for your alphabetical listings. So if we're in an effects menu like we are here in New, and the slider is activated, whenever you click on a letter key, that will scroll to that alphabetical letter in the list. So here if I click on B, that's going to go up to the black. If I click on C, or I click on E, it's going to roll down as close as it can to that letter. And we can see there's X for Express Maps, mostly useful when the lists get a little longer. Of course, now you can use the page up or the page down, just like we did in the scene bin, or Home goes to the beginning of the list, End goes to the end of the list. I'm going to escape to essentially right-click out of that slider. And remember down at the bottom when we have our choice of OK and Cancel in any menu that offers those, the return key would allow you to enter and build that color scene, or the cancel would escape, or essentially right-click you out of this menu. So I'm going to click Escape, and we're actually going to access the Special menu. So under F2, Special in the Edit menu is accessed by the letter E. Now on this one, I'm going to click on L to activate the link slider, and you'll notice if I click on A, it's going to go up to the top. I'll go to some other letter keys here for D. One of the things that you'll notice is if I click on S, I'm actually working in the list, and you can actually use the up-down arrow keys here to scroll one at a time. We're actually using the top alphabetical list here in Special. Now here's a trick for those that are actually familiar with Power Key. You might not have known this, but if you actually use the Alt key, you hold down Alt and select your letter. So I'll hold down Alt, and I'll select a different letter, like L. We actually go to the bottom alphabetical list, and this will alphabetically look through it. So holding down Alt, I can go to T. Holding down Alt, I can click on P. This is just meaning that I'm looking at the secondary alphabetical list in Special when I hold down the Alt key and choose an alphabetical letter. That might be something that those with Power Key knowledge might not have used before. Alright, now let's take a look at a few other options here. I'm going to escape out of this menu, and I'm going to go ahead and add a few scenes to the storyboard. Now one of the things that can be done here, one of these popular tricks you saw in the previous video manuals, is the option to use repeat control commands. Now normally you saw that when I did storyboard insert, that would add a scene up to the storyboard. And when I use an arrow key to do behind, it would add the next one behind. If you actually use two key commands, such as holding down the storyboard and also holding down one of the control keys, so two fingers are holding down two keys. If I click on Insert again and let go of those keys, you'll notice it advanced in the scene bin over to the next clip. But however, because I held down the control key with storyboard, I've actually told the Power Key I want to follow up with another command. And this is where we start getting into some of the copy and repeat commands. What I'm going to tell the machine is Control R for repeat. Control, holding down Control, tap the letter R. Because I held down Control Storyboard, this command can now be accessed. Control Repeat is saying, how many times would you like to repeat that storyboard insert command? You'll see the repeat slider, and I can click on R to activate the repeat slider. And this is a very sensitive key. If you use your trackball, you're going to find that this is going to whip very rapidly. I would suggest just trying to get it into a range and then use the arrow keys to find that area. And then of course use the Enter or Return key to select that option and hit Enter and Return to repeat that command. And then using the arrow keys in the scene bin, you can see that I've essentially added all these scenes in the scene bin. Holding down Storyboard and using the arrow keys, I can move through the storyboard and see where all these scenes got placed up in order from that very first scene. I often call that the core scene, the very first clip that you're manipulating with a control command that you might follow up with a repeat command. Let's talk about a couple of other features here that we can do in the Edit menu. PowerKey also gives you the option to do searches. Now if you hold down F2, you'll notice that the F button, if I choose F, would do a search for the scene bin. So there's video 7. But the other thing you might not be familiar with is the ability to search by name in the scene bin. If you hold down Control and tap F, this gives you the ability to search by name. Now, uppercase and lowercase, just so you know, are irrelevant here. So I know on the storyboard I might have a scene called, let's say, Pan. And when I hit Enter or Return to do OK, it's going to search in the scene bin for that name. Same thing for the storyboard. If I do Control, Storyboard, and tap the letter F, that's going to search, as you can see. Please enter the name of the storyboard scene. And I'll do the same thing. I'll type in Pan, because I remember that name of that scene on the board, and hit Enter. And then boom, up on the storyboard it goes right to Pan. So you can use those to do a search for a scene by name. Another option that not too many people may be familiar with is a reverse search. As you know, when we use the F key, it will do a search up on the storyboard for us. So if I was somewhere else down here in the bin and I chose F, it'll go right to do the search. But you can actually do a reverse search from the scene bin, so we actually search the storyboard for your clip. So let's hold down the storyboard key and tap the arrow keys to go somewhere else on the board here. But let's say I wanted to search the storyboard for a particular scene. You have to make sure that the scene you're looking for does have a white dot, meaning it has been added to the storyboard. So what you do is you hold down Storyboard and tap the F key. There, it did it. It went right to the storyboard. It searched for that particular scene. So Control F is doing your search by name, or you can do your normal searches with the F key or Storyboard F key to help you find your clips when your storyboards or your scene bins get rather long. Some other keys on the keyboard that you can use on any menu are identified as the F5 through F8 keys, or M1, M2, M3, M4. These are called marker keys, and you can basically assign several functions to any of these keys as long as these functions aren't located in the same screen. They're basically memory keys to allow you to store a particular scene or a particular filter into one of these particular keys. You can, of course, reassign the marker keys whenever you want, because it'll overwrite based on whatever menu you're in. Let's take a look at some examples. For instance, let's say down in the scene bin, I'm going to use my right arrow key to get me over to a particular clip. Here's a particular talking head shot that I might want to memorize. To use the memory keys, simply hold down Control and tap the particular memory key you wish to use, or marker key. I'm going to hold down Control and tap M1. This particular video clip is now stored into the M1 memory key for the Edit menu. So if I go anywhere else here in the scene bin, and at any time I click on M1, it's going to jump back to that clip. So this is a great way for you to make these master scenes. Perhaps you have a big clip that you've stored down here at the end of the scene bin that's a master scene. You can hold down Control and tap one of the marker keys, and then that's always stored, so that if you click on the marker key again, it'll always jump back to that particular clip, until of course it's deleted. Now these memory keys have a different service and different menus. So for instance, let's say I come out to the Transitions menu, which holding down F2 says to go to Transitions, I can hold down the navigation key and click on C. Probably means for crossfade, as it's the most commonly used transition. So Navigation, C takes me to Transitions. Now let's say I choose to add a transition, which works the same way as you did before. Storyboard, Insert will add your transition to the storyboard. Now if I wanted to choose to save this crossfade as a memory key, hold down Control, M1, and now crossfade is stored in the Transitions menu as the M1 key. So if I wanted to use my slider here and scroll anywhere else, say I go all the way down here alphabetically to sunbeams, but I want to go back to crossfade, just click on M1. And there it is. It goes right back in and it stores M1. And it's a crossfade option when we're in transitions. So you can see the marker keys can store different items based on the main menu you're in. Or they can be rewritten if you choose to do Control and that same marker key again with a particular different option of a scene or transition. Okay, let's review something we actually did in the earlier short version of the PowerKey program. And I'm actually going to use the storyboard remove key or storyboard delete key to hold down instead of tap and clear off the storyboard. Kind of a quick way to purge a board if you ever needed to do so. One of the things we talked about in the short version was the ability to use one of the options called trim for Control T. Now normally if we hold down the F2, you can see that trim can be accessed with the letter T, and to trim you can click on I for in, and then use your arrow keys to scroll in, and then the return key or enter to set that in point. If I come back out to the edit menu now, you can see that you've trimmed this particular scene. If I want to repeat this trim length across all these clips, perhaps we have a photo montage and we want all these clips to be the same length, then we can actually do a Control T. I'm actually going to trim this scene down a little shorter here and go for something that I believe might be a similar length of a lot of these shots, somewhere under 3 seconds. Now if I wanted to, I can still use the trim key and do it to each and every one of the scenes. But PowerKey makes it much faster and easier. If you hold down the Control button and tap the letter T, it's going to move on to the next scene, trimming that same clip, pulling back from the out to set that particular scene. Of course, if it's shorter than your scene that you did before, then it'll only go to the maximum length of that one shot. If I hold down Control and I tap the letter T, it'll repeat this over and over again. Or if you were to hold down the T with that Control, it'll whip through your whole scene bin. You may not want to do that. So now here I can do Control R, since I did in fact already do Control T, and now it's saying because you held down the Control command and you used T for trim, how many times would you like to repeat this? And I can click on the R slider and then set the number of times I wish to have this scene trim length of 226. And I'll hit enter and enter to close the repeat command. Now you can see in the scene bin, for as long as those scenes would allow me, it'll trim them all to the exact same length. And then of course you can hold down storyboard, insert with the Control button, so Control storyboard, insert, and then Control R to repeat this command, and then enter to repeat it. This same command can be done back in the transitions menu, so navigation key, C, takes me to transitions. And if I want to go on the storyboard over, I can hold down the storyboard key and use my arrow keys, or storyboard plus home takes me to the very beginning. We can now use the exact same commands, Control, storyboard, insert, with our crossfade. You'll see it moved over to the next two scenes awaiting command, and then Control R says how many times would you like to repeat that, and we can hit enter, and now it'll apply all those commands of those crossfades to those scenes. Over in the audio menu, if we come out to the main menu and go into our audio mix menu, this is a really neat command. I'll go back here to the very beginning of the storyboard, or actually better, let's do storyboard plus home to go to the very beginning. Now if we choose to select a particular sample up on your audio mix menu, you can actually highlight your sample and use Control M to mute it. If you want that mute to repeat, because I held down Control and I tapped the letter M, that assigned a mute to that sample. But you'll notice that it moved over to highlight the next sample, saying it wants to await another command if you wish to apply one. If you do Control R, it says how many times would you like to repeat this mute. And I can hit Enter, and it'll go across whatever track that you had selected and repeat that mute across all your scenes. Really powerful and really fast way to mute several samples. Now here's another option. Suppose we have a particular sample that is a certain volume length, and maybe we want that to repeat across all your samples. There is also a command to do this. Control E actually repeats a volume level to another sample. So that way now it moved over to the next sample with Control E at negative 13 dB, and I can do Control R and say repeat that minus 13 dB volume level across all your samples. That way, if you wanted to have several samples have a similar volume adjustment, but maybe have one specific one, have one particular volume raise, this makes it so much quicker and easier for you to make those adjustments for audio. And finally, just a couple of other quick ones that might not be so popular that are well known. One is over here in titling. If you ever choose to add a title to your particular scene, let's go in and enter edit text, and we can see we have a bunch of information here in the default title. If you use the command Alt-N, that will actually give you the option to delete everything on the screen, including your texts, boxes, and pages. And if I click on Enter for yes, let's make sure of that by holding down F2. Yep. The whole screen will get cleared off. So a really fast way for you to blank everything on a text menu, Alt-N. Another one that you might not be too familiar with is the option to use number options whenever you have a drop-down menu. A drop-down menu is identified by these three little white lines indicating a menu can open up. If you open up one of these particular menus, it'll actually allow you to use the number keys, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and move down that list. It'll go all the way up to 10. And another option that you might not be familiar with, we'll actually come over here into our length slider. Let's say we choose a particular color scene that we want to build, and we choose to activate the length slider. So F2 uses T to open up the length slider. And if you actually hold down the Alt key and type in a number, let's say I type in, we'll do a 3 second and 15, and release the Alt key, that will set your length slider. Let's do that again. Hold down Alt, type in the number, like 7 seconds and 21 frames, release the Alt key. You won't see the changes until you release the Alt key, but then it'll allow you to set the length slider based on numbers. So you're just holding down the Alt key whenever you see a length slider, type in the number, and release the Alt key, and that will allow you to set your length. Another one of these options that might not be well known for some of the regular PowerKey users. Very nice little feature. Finally, just so you're aware of it, anytime you're using this machine, you can also use general copy and paste commands just like you would on a PC. Here we're using Control-C to do a copy. If I move elsewhere on the scene bin, Control-V will do your paste. Holding down Control and hitting X does a cut, just like you would have on your PC commands. These same things can be applied to the storyboard if you're holding down the storyboard key. But we also need to hold down the Control as well. So if on the storyboard I do Control, Storyboard, C, does a copy. If I hold down Storyboard and use the arrow keys to move elsewhere, and then do Control, Storyboard, V, that does a paste. And of course, Control, Storyboard, X would do a cut. So what we've seen here today is with the main operating system on the machine. Many Casablanca add-on programs can also use PowerKey commands. Use the F2 button whenever you want to see one of these keys and see if the program has support for it. There are also several other key commands that are out there. You may also find some surprises. Again, be sure to look through the printed tables in the back of the PowerKey printed manual. It's very useful. As you can see, PowerKey will add so much more speed and functionality to your editing. It's not a program you have to master. As you saw in the demo, I was kind of doing some use with the trackball and the keyboard. So you can still use the trackball and use some of the important PowerKey features when you need them. With a little patience and a little practice, I think that you'll find this is a very powerful addition to your Casablanca video editor.